This is Cloak and Dagger News, catching you up on this week's stories, propaganda, or psychological operations critical to your security and privacy.
In Pasnia news, Pasnia mutual aid request. As you may have heard, Corey Hughes has butthole cancer. And now we got a Kuno for him. So you can donate Monero to help with Corey Hughes's cancer, butt cancer, whatever. Kuno.an.media/fundraiser/XLPS. X-Ray Lima Papa Sierra. I suppose the link will probably be in the show notes or somewhere. I guess you could also pay to boost the Kuno fundraiser, but I don't know if that's worth it. I feel like you're better off just giving money to the fundraiser itself. And of course, you can still send Bitcoin to the Bitcoin address ending in Tango 7 X-Ray Foxtrot, or send fiat to buymeacoffee.com/JFKbook. Yeah, you told me that he's got Lynch syndrome, which is, it means you got some fucking genetic mutations that fuck with DNA mismatch repair and lead to this hereditary non-polyposis colorectal cancer. I couldn't really work out what that means for survival rates, but they could be better overall or worse if you look at it stage by stage, or it depends on which genetic mutations you have or whatever. I couldn't really work that out. I guess the treatments for that are mostly the same. I heard of something called immune checkpoint inhibitors, though, ICIs, which has something to do with the mismatch repair shit. But hey, it's all the more reason to highlight that it's good to, well, I guess it's good to care about oxidization and DNA repair and get get good sleep, and fucking take CoQ10 and shit. I don't know. Also, DNA screening, getting DNA. I mean, obviously you want to be careful who you give your DNA to. They're catching criminals with genetic genealogy, investigative genetic genealogy these days. So even if your fucking niece sends her genome to Ancestry, that can get you thrown in prison. So yeah, you might want to watch out with who you give your DNA to be sequenced. But if you got someone cool, they're going to do it on the down low. And, don't tell them anything about who you are. Whatever's, make up a name for that or something. Get them to give you the genome directly. If they can give you the sequence genome information directly, and you can have you can have your guys do your little medical analysis on it. It's good to know. It's nice to know what genes you have. Personalized medicine using genetic information is cutting edge stuff, and it's one of those things that would be like, oh, it turns out I have Lynch syndrome. I have Lynch syndrome, which should really be called Cronenberg syndrome, because David Lynch movies can be kind of creepy, but Cronenberg's more the body horror guy. But yeah, if you knew that, then you would be like, oh, I should probably be screened for cancer more and earlier. Which, could result in it being discovered earlier. And also, really everyone should have a cancer checkup or something. There are ways to, anyone who's like 50 should probably go check and see if they have cancer. Just get a big thorough checkup to see what's wrong with you once you're 50. And if you live on goy slop or something and you get like vaccinated and stuff, you might want to make that like 30 and then go again at 40, something like that. Whatever. Go to the Kuno. There's a fucking Kuno.an.media, whatever. There's a Monero thing for Corey now. Here's Mother Earth threats news. There was a magnitude 7.1 earthquake that hit Kumamoto Prefecture on the southern island of Kyushu in Japan. Whatever. They get earthquakes a lot over there. Watch out. Watch out if you're there a few days ago. Yeah, whatever. There was some infrastructure damage, some homes damage. There was a big mall that fell down, and then there was a big boom after the big mall fell down, and there were dozens missing last I heard. But they're just Asians, so it doesn't count. And NBC threats, nuclear biochemical threats news. Taco Bell foot lettuce here to stay. I'm hearing more about that silly little parasite they claim folks are getting sick from because of some sort of foot lettuce. Yeah, a guy was standing with his feet in the lettuce, and yeah, apparently that led to all this. That's what they say anyway. I guess elsewise in nuclear biochemical threats, there's some sort of documentary out now, or at least I just heard about it. You remember that documentary Vaxxed? That was a good anti-vax documentary. There's another one. There's a sequel. I don't know if it's the same folks actually, but it's a sequel. I think it's called An Inconvenient Study. This seems like a fun one because Vaxxed kind of made the focus whatever MMR vaccines and autism and fucking that big covered up study or whatever. This is another one that's about like you know how like if you point out all the times small informal studies have reproduced the kids who get shots have like way more chronic diseases and overall mortality and blah, and like have all these diseases that the kids who get no shots like literally don't have at all, like almost ever. And then they say, oh yeah, but that's not a proper scientific study. You got to do it with like a big medical institution with like thousands of subjects. Well, somebody did that. Somebody did that in, I guess, Detroit or something, and with thousands of subjects with the big medical institutions data. Of course, he got fired, even though he was a pro-vax, even though he was a pro-vax doctor who thought the results would just exonerate vaccines. Just that he did it at all was enough to get him fired. But you know what the results of that are. I don't have to tell you. It's not good. It's not good for the shots. Okay, there are a couple times the shots were shown to be effective, seemingly at stopping the infections that they were supposed to stop. At least with some of the old school shots, but they still weren't safe. They were causing diseases many times worse and more likely to kill you than anything they were helping with. And then, of course, many of them just don't work at all. Also, on top of being harmful. Anyway, seems like a good documentary. I didn't actually watch it, but An Inconvenient Study might be worth watching. Logistics news. Even though some key refineries, some key oil refineries in Saudi Arabia are not doing too well as some of the air defenses that would be shielding those refineries, not doing too well, which we'll get to more in faggot-ass war news. But even though that was happening, the oil prices were going down, at least earlier in the week. That tells me there's some kind of market distortion. I'm not some sort of stock trader, some sort of day traders. I don't know, oil futures. I don't know why that is, but I know that it's not right. It's not right, I tell you. Sounds like market distortion to me. Whatever. Maybe it has something to do with states flooding markets with reserve oil or something. So yeah, those are chickens that have to come home to roost, and probably means that it'll be worse later. Elsewise in logistics news, you know how there's been all these accidents, all these whoopsies happening at, fuel refineries and tankers. Well, not tankers. Usually those aren't called accidents, but, and I always kind of I've been cocking an eyebrow audibly. So I don't have an eyebrow. I'm actually a wraith, but like symbolically cocking an eyebrow um at that and thinking it's kind of weird. Maybe not all of them are accidents. But in this case, it's the first time I can say for sure that it wasn't. They said it was an accident. That some Egyptian floating natural gas plant went kablooey, and also a nearby tanker blew up. And they tried to say that that was an accident. You know how sometimes a natural gas plant blows up, and then an oil tanker that's kind of near it also blows up for some reason. Sometimes that happens accidentally, right? Because the ocean between them caught fire or something. I don't know. Uh, but yeah, that wasn't a whoopsie because somebody caught on tape that it was a drone strike. But the funny thing about that is, well, no one claimed it. But we'll get back to that in war news. Um, Now, in crackdowns news, if I hear folks talking about this story, I didn't really read about it. All right, but I heard some folks talking about it. Maybe you heard somebody talk about it. I heard some guy used a duress password on his Graphene OS device. He had Graphene on his phone, and there's a Graphene feature where you can set a duress passphrase. And you might know what that is. That's a thing where when you're under duress, like you're being forced to put in a passphrase, you can put in the duress passphrase, and something else will happen other than the thing being decrypted or whatever. In the case of a hardware wallet like a Trezor, it might be decoy wallets that you're talking about. In the case of Graphene, it means wiping the device. And so somebody tried that. Somebody actually tried that on the Bludgies. I want to say it was in an airport or something. I don't know. You tell me. You probably read it. I didn't. Was it in an airport? I don't know. Anyway, it seems that they didn't like that very much, and they're trying to see if they can get him in trouble for doing that. So, whatever. That's something that happened. Maybe it's relevant to you. Maybe you care in some way about that. I don't know. Elsewise in Crackdown's news, this isn't even news. It's just an article that seemed kind of cool. Did I read the article? No, I did not. No, I did. Are you noticing a pattern here? No, I did not read the article. But it seemed like it might be kind of cool. There's an article on my privacy blog called "The Infrastructure That Watches Everything," and it kind of looked like a cool little overview of. They're talking about like fucking flock cameras and all the stuff flock has, not just cameras, but the flock stuff. They were talking about the what's their name, Avalon or some shit. There's a company that has like they do the cop body cams. They got the body cams on the Bludgies. They're doing like a flock thing with that. There's Motorola has some sort of mass AI surveillance program. They're just giving a little overview on all these different little things. The infrastructure that watches everything kind of seemed like a cool article that I didn't read, but maybe you should read it. Elsewise in Crackdowns news? Question mark. It's another cyber pandemic test, folks. As you may have, this is an old favorite we have here on Cloak and Dagger ever since the start of Cloak and Dagger, where some bit of critical infrastructure randomly turns off for no reason, and this is something that didn't used to happen so often before about 3 or 4 years ago. which coincidentally is right after an Agenda 21 type. Actually, there were two. There were two Agenda 21 type war games. Where what if a cyber pandemic happened? What if a big cyber attack there was a big cyber attack against critical infrastructure? And what if the answer to that was fascism? What if the answer to that was all out totalitarianism? And they war gamed that twice in a row. And then all of a sudden, ever since then, big like tech companies and airlines and things like that, ISPs, mostly in North America, have been kind of just randomly going down, turning completely off, and then turning back on again later. And it pisses everybody off and causes a bunch of lost money. And they just keep saying like, oh, whoops, like someone's finger slipped, or it was a bug, and it's really weird. Anyway, so my little conspiracy theory that I keep promoting is that the cyber pandemic is a false flag manufactured emergency that is being planned, where they'll press all the kill switches at once, and use it to justify unprecedented state crackdowns on critical infrastructure and the internet and probably the financial systems as well. But anyway,
water rationing remains in effect until further notice. Showers are outlawed.
Oh, exactly.
And so
Exactly.
is
You
flushing the
you
toilet.
you don't know the half of it, man. That clip was actually going to be better for the next one, because there's actually a water one coming up. But anyway, the first one is American Airlines again, by the way, because American Airlines had a cyber pandemic test last year. But this is a different one. This time they shut down communication between planes and air traffic control all of a sudden. For some reason, all the planes, and for one airline, the communication went down between the planes and air traffic control, as you do, you know. That's just an accident, normal accident, happened for several hours and caused a bunch of trouble. And then there was another one that it could be a cyber pandemic test, or it could just be some other kind of false flag, because this one was actually meant to be an attack, not a whoopsie. They said it was a cyber attack. Cyber attack on a Minnesota state monopoly on tap water. And you know, we know how we love our tap water around here. Tap water is very precious, it's very nutritious and delicious. I make my own tap water at home. I make my own tap water at home, homemade tap. And you're gonna want to get into that homemade tap water hobby, because in Minnesota that shit went down for a bit, and then they had a boil order on. Don't tell me to boil the water. I'll do whatever I want with the water. Cyber attack. But yeah, I'm pretty sure some of the cyber pandemic tests are definitely false flag cyber attacks. A few years ago, they did that on like big meat plants, meat processing plants or something, and they made it a Monero ransomware attack. Now to be fair, that could have just been a real ransomware attack, but that one just felt kind of fake to me somehow. I don't know why. It was a gut feeling. Parties and party vans news. There's a fun party hopping off. Pretty fun party. Big party hopping off. You may not know this, but Spain, okay, you might think of Spain as a country that is not in Africa. That is just a bit to the north of Africa, pretty close, but there's a bit of water between Spain and Africa, right? Well, if you ask the state of Spain, they say, actually, there's a little dangling little appendage south of the water, which they say is part of Spain. And even the guys there, even the local state of this little city called Ceuta, even they don't really like that very much because they're an enclave. They claim some sort of independence. So even they don't really want to be part of Spain. But anyway, they're kind of considered part of Spain, I guess. But they're fucking in Africa, just bordering Morocco, as it would be. And there was a funny little event where it was rushed by border hoppers through Morocco. Not necessarily all Moroccans, mind you. It's just a door. It's just a doorway into Europe, right? So whoever can get to Morocco more easily than they can to Europe will think it's a fun idea to rush the border. You know the drill. You know what's going on here. They've got the globalists playing their little funny business where they dangle a carrot and say, oh well, we're just gonna, if you hop this border, it's like the dry foot policy in Florida. Like all you got to do is make it over and then it doesn't even count. We'll say it doesn't even count and you won't get in trouble. And then wouldn't you know it, right after they say that, there's a bunch of George Soros branded buses that are already parked there full of 1,000 guys for some reason at that exact time. And so then they throw a big party and it sounds like fun. There's some rioting going on, a few break-ins happening in Ceuta. There's like no border guards. There's like two guys guarding a chain link fence or something. So wasn't too hard to do this, but whatever, that's happening. So yeah, now you're supposed to either be very upset and become a neo-Nazi, or you're supposed to be a faggot and just be like, oh yeah, it's a good thing. And there's no middle ground, and there's no third option. That's it. Those are the only two things you can be: a communist or a neo-Nazi. And also for some reason that means you can like it or not like it. In PSYOPs news, some sort of Russian state missile blew up in Poland, and there's some sort of little PSYOP going around about how that's some sort of big event, like anyone's gonna care, like NATO's gonna go to war with the Russian state over that. That's not true. It's not even the first time something like that happened. We've talked about like 5 things like that on the show already in the last year, so that's silly. Everyone knows it's just a little collateral damage, a little bit of dust flying off of the war with the Ukrainian Nazi CIA niggers. So whatever, no big deal. Nobody actually cares about that. Elsewise in PSYOPs news, there's that Pickaxe Mountain crap again. Talking like they're gonna go attack Pickaxe Mountain, which is quite a fortible stronghold of the Iranian yogurt, and I'm pretty sure they can't do that. I'm pretty sure there's not much they could do to attack Pickaxe Mountain. So that sounds made up. And another PSYOP thing that happened was sounds like I ate some Iranian yogurt. Well, I may not read anything to research for the news, but that doesn't mean I won't eat something for research. Elsewise in PSYOPs news, they said that the Iranian yogurt did a surprise attack on U.S. bases. But it's all right because everything was intercepted and it didn't even work. A lie on both counts. There is no surprise attack. There is an unending stream of attacks in a war And it didn't seem like they were intercepted very well either. It seems like those attacks worked. Speaking of which, war news. Our war news is sponsored by Agorist.market. Make money, not war. List your business on Agorist.market or find like-minded businesses on Agorist.market. War news is sponsored by Agorist.market so that I don't forget to say something about Agorist.market from now on, since we're contractually obliged to do that. I guess.